well from there.
Would you put Bill Cassidy in that group of senators to watch? Is he in the moderate group?
Yeah, Bill Cassidy is a very interesting proposition here. I think he is a moderate for sure. He, of course, voted to convict President Trump after the January 6th attack. But at the same time, he's facing a very tough primary challenge from a number of further right-wing Republicans in Louisiana, in a state where Republicans are going to win that anyway. So he knows he has to be with President Trump here. But throughout this entire process, he has raised concerns about the bill, hurting his own state with Medicaid cuts, perhaps, and also saying, look, we still need to reduce the deficit.
And Bill Cassidy up in 2026
yes.
as well. So will we see amendments being offered by the folks that you just mentioned? And will any of them pass?
Yeah, I think, Susan Collins wants to offer an amendment, she said, to increase this rural hospital fund. This, of course, is the work through which assuage some of the concerns of Republicans about the Medicaid cuts, saying this is going to harm our rural hospitals. She wants to increase that from $25 billion to $50 billion, is the reporting. Again, I think these are difficult to see them passing because at this point in time, you need Democrats to vote with you on some of these and you need Republicans to vote with you. And the bill has already been workshopped so much. And I think that just amendments passing this late on is not usually a good bet.
So two Republicans are no's. We know that. The majority is 53-47. They can only lose 3. If they lose more than that, what are we looking at here?
That would be a disaster for John Thune and Senate Republican leadership. They'd have to totally rework this bill, go back to the drawing board. They'd have to tell President Donald Trump that we cannot get this passed by the July 4th deadline. They'd tell the House of Representatives, stay on July 4th recess. We're going to have to work this out within the Senate. I still think that's quite an unlikely proposition, to be honest. As I said, once we're this far in the process and the motion to proceed is passed, I think they do get there. And let's not underestimate the role of Trump here, right? He was very influential on Saturday night when we had those holdouts, which were Murkowski, Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson. J.D. Vance was in the room negotiating with them. Trump was making calls. When the president starts leaning on Republican senators, and he's posting on social media throughout the weekend, remember, you have to get reelected. That pressure is very strong. We saw Tom Tillis stand up for a bit, and then he very quickly said, I'm not going to run for re-election. Anyone else who wants a job in the United States Senate likely has to be on the right side of Donald Trump.
What does that mean, though, for when moderates like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins up for re-election, she has to run. It's not like she can get a primary challenge that's to the right of her. That person would have a hard time winning.
Yeah, 100%. Susan Collins is in a very interesting position because she has won time after time in Maine, which is frankly becoming not a deep blue state, but a solidly blue state. This is a state that voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris by 5 to 10 points. But she has this knack of saying to her constituents, look, you know me. I've represented you for multiple decades. Sometimes I cross my party. Sometimes I vote with my party. But I'm going to be a straight shooter. I think she has a tough calculation here because she is a close ally of leadership. She, of course, is the chair of the powerful Appropriations Committee. She doesn't want to hurt John Thune and her Senate leadership colleagues. However, she's made clear time after time again, this bill goes too far to the right for her. But I think we've seen Collins in this role many times in the past, and I think she's probably going to end up voting with leadership. It would be my guess if we look at her Supreme Court decisions in the past and how she generally backs the party line.
Could we see J.D. Vance in the chair to break a tie?
We very well could. I mean, that's a real live possibility, right? As we just mentioned, there are 2 no votes, Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, very likely. It's not out of the realm of possibility that one more gets added in there. Maybe that is Susan Collins. Maybe that is Murkowski. But if that happens, of course, as you mentioned, J.D. Vance would break the tie. And that is the benefit of Republicans winning these seats in 2024. Of course, they flipped Pennsylvania. They flipped Montana. They flipped Ohio. They have this cushion where they can afford 3 no votes. And it brings me back, actually, to the last reconciliation bill that Democrats passed. Of course, all eyes were on one man, Joe Manchin, because that was an evenly divided Senate. Now Republicans have a bigger margin here.